21 Grams is back, and welcome to the third iteration of our show. And in this iteration, we are offering a one-on-one interview with indie artists, and we're going to examine three very specific aspects of the creative soul. The cerebral, which will be all about the chess moves and deep thoughts that go into the aspects of the work and creating the work. The emotional, which will be all about the investment the artist has made in the work and creating it. And the practical, which will all be about the application of common practices, tropes, and ideas. In this episode, we go across the pond and welcome in our friend David Green. David is a multi-genre author who primarily writes epic fantasy, urban fantasy, and mysteries and thrillers. That being said, I'm your host, Joe Compton, and let's get deep into it. Here now is a new episode of 21 Grams.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to 21 Grams. And I'm real excited to have my guest tonight, the wonderful and awesome English-born but Irish-living David Green. How you doing, sir?
I'm great. How are you? How are you doing?
Good. You just released a book not too long ago.
I did. It feels like a long time ago now. 2 months is a long time in the world of indie publishing. Yeah, I've written another book in that time. So.
Hello, Anita. Yeah, that's awesome. Tell everybody a little bit. I want to just start by giving some people some context as we'll get deeper into it, I promise. But I want to give people some context of what we're talking about. So tell everybody a little bit about the world that you're currently in, the Empire of Ruins, and I mean, you can talk about the previous stuff too. I mean, I'm sure people would be interested in that because it's a little different genre-wise as well.
Right. Yeah. So when I first started writing, I suppose it's always kind of weird to say I'm a writer, but I suppose I am these days. I was just kind of figuring out what it was I wanted to do and actually how to kind of do this thing because COVID had started, so we're all in lockdown. So I was doing a lot of horror short stories, just to kind of find my feet, and to it's one of these very wanky writer things to say, to find my voice, right?
Yeah.
Which is funny because my two main series I write completely different styles. So I was doing that, but I've always been a big fantasy fan, and naturally my work was going over towards that the direction. So whenever I was writing something that was supposed to be for a horror anthology, it was getting a little bit more fantastical each time, and so I kind of just gave into it and wrote my first book, which was first published book, which was in Solitude Shadow, which is the first book of the Empire of Ruin series. And then, because I am a glutton for punishment, I decided to also start an urban fantasy series at the same time. So I alternate between those. So the Empire of Ruin series is epic fantasy. It's very character driven, with female characters at the center, which is kind of unusual for epic fantasy. And the second book has just come out, which I'm very, very proud of, actually. It's been getting really great reviews, and yeah, it was a book that it kind of did everything that I wanted to kind of do with it. I kind of felt like I'd done everything that I set out to do with it, which was good. And then my urban fantasy series is called Hell in Haven, which is so the epic fantasy is third person past tense, and the urban fantasy one is first person present tense, and it's obviously singular POV as well, so it's quite different. So there's technically there's 2 books out now, but we've compiled them into one called The Devil Walks in Blood Special Edition, and I just finished writing the sequel called One Life Left. I don't know when it's going to be out, but I've had a couple of beta readers have read it so far, and they've responded really positively to it. Both of them have said it's the best book that I've written so far. So, well,
there you go.
When it's out.
So establishing yourself as a horror writer and writing those words helped you get there. That old Hemingway quote about, you're not a writer till you've written 1,000,000 words and put it down on paper, kind of idea. Yeah. So you are finding your footing then.
Yeah. So it was a good way to kind of, I don't want to kind of like make out that writing horror is easier than fantasy. 'Cause I don't think it is, but there is, a lot less world building that you have to do, which is I'm establishing of rules and other things like that. So I just felt it was more of a thing that I could do straight away. But I also ghostwrite as well, so I write a lot of other people's books. So I've done the 1,000,000 words now.
Yeah. Look at you. You're such a savvy veteran of GoIndieNow. You know that I love when you lead me into questions I am going to ask you, which you have done. In just that one sentence you just said, I have 3 questions that are exactly about that one sentence that you just spouted. And I really actually wanted to start this kind of deep dive because I do know you. We've spent enough time together and talked enough about your process and knowing how you do things and what you like and how you like it. And I've also read, of course, I've done my research and read a lot of interviews you've done and things of that nature. And you talk a lot about how you really cherish the Bible aspect of creating a world and having notes and reference points and things like that. So I'm kind of curious how you access your extensive world building research. Is it something that you do on the fly when it comes up? Do you look at it do you look to complete a full draft, a clean draft before you access it? Or do you plug in details as you need them? How do you approach what you do with that information that you've collected into your process?
It's a great question. I have them all in like spreadsheets. I have them all on spreadsheets, and hi Nikki and Hells and Anita. Nikki's my beta reader actually, so for the last Halloween book.
Hells was giving you a lot of good praise there too. So good about the new book.
So I have like loads of spreadsheets and Word documents with all my kind of world building, and I kind of have flow charts about where things can interact, so characters and concepts and stuff. I really
be a nightmare.
I love it. I love all that kind of stuff, right? So I kind of what I do is when I'm going back to one of the series, I'll reread the last book, and then I'll reread all of the kind of supplemental material, I suppose I could call it. So it's kind of alive in my head because my writing process is kind of weird. So it's by the time that I've finished a first draft, it's probably the 4th or 5th draft by the way that I write. So
nice.
So once I've kind of done a writing session for the day, I'll go back over what I've written and kind of look at it again and kind of edit it and do little tweaks and what have you with it. And then once I've done a chapter, I'll do the same thing again. So by the time I usually can do, depending on the size of a chapter, I can usually do a chapter in like maybe 1 or 2 sessions. And then when I've done 3 chapters, I'll send it off to my alpha reader. So he'll be reading those 3 chapters, and I'll be just writing the next 3 chapters. So when he comes back with his notes, I'll go back over those 3 chapters. So by that point, those 3 chapters have probably had 3 passes on them, give or take. And then obviously when I'm kind of looking at things, I can go back and say, well, I've done this further on, so I just need to go back and just add this little bit in here now and just do this kind of thing. And then by the time I finish the book, I'll go back through it all, one more thing to read, a full read through. And that'll be usually the 4th or 5th draft, I suppose. So it's kind of a quick process. It helps me kind of like write pretty quickly. And it works for me. I kind of like that organic kind of thing of doing it 3 chapters at a time and kind of getting people's thoughts on it as we're going that way. Because I think I don't know. I think I'd be like, if I'd written the whole thing out, I'd be like, oh my god, does any of this work? Is it good? I don't know. I have no I'm no judgment on my own stuff whatsoever. So once that is done with the alpha reader, then I'll send it out to a few beta readers. So, but before I send it off to my publisher, it's usually had like 6 or 7 kind of looks. Yeah.
Do you annotate what you superimpose so that you don't go over it again, or is there a process in which you keep track of what you've inserted into things, or is it just rereading and rereading?
No, it's pretty organic that way. It's kind of you see it's weird. It doesn't ever change that much from what I first put down. So when I'm not physically sat down at my computer writing, I'm writing it in my head. So I know what I'm going to, and this is something I thought everyone did, and someone told me recently that this is like really weird, because it's not that I'm even just writing in my head. It's like I actually can see the words like on a piece of paper in my head, and when I sit down, it's just like I'm copying them from this piece of paper in my head, right? But I can't read it out loud, which is weird. I get it all muddled up, but I can just type it out. So I spend most of the day. So it's like I just sit down and just copy it from my head. So during the day when I'm not at the computer, I'm kind of like messing with things and changing things and tweaking things. So
believe it or not, my process is similar. Believe it or not, I don't have the photocopy in my head, but what I tend to do is I start to have conversations with myself, with my characters, and and I've learned over time that when I get those moments, I'm going to write it for a little bit. So what I need to do is I use my phone and I record me talking as the characters, and I'll make little notes to myself too about, oh, you know what, I don't want to really say that, whatever the character just said, kind of thing in there. And then I annotate it onto a piece of paper, or, obviously into the computer and write it that way. And that's usually how, that's especially how I do screenplays, because that just helps me kind of get the voice and the tone of what I'm doing. So
yeah. No, it's handy. I mean, I think everyone's process is different, so it's whatever works for you, and whatever works for them. That kind of it kind of works for me. So like once it goes through like kind of the my own kind of going back and looking at it and other people looking at it, it's more of a refinement really. Like the story doesn't massively change, and the details never really kind of change. It's kind of always kind of there. It's just a refinement just to make sure that it's like I've not said the same thing too many times, or the characters have had faced the same kind of situation so many times. You know what I mean? That kind of stuff.
You're a hybrid model, right? You kind of plot, but then you kind of pants as well a little bit.
Right. Yeah. And sometimes I just go full pants. Right. It depends really. I had to do that with the last Helen Haven book that I just wrote. Because my plans, the publishing plans, changed for it. So the amount of it was going to be a 5-book series, but the publisher wanted more. So the kind of which is a good sign, right? So they didn't want less. They were like, give us more. So with the world that's in, it lends itself to kind of having more anyway. But it meant that the book that I was going to write next had to change because the one I was going to write next would have had to written an immediate sequel to it that would have picked up right afterwards and would have quite kind of fundamentally changed quite a lot of stuff. So that is still planned for later on in the series. So I was like, well, what shall I write for this one? And so I just was like, you know what, I'm just gonna have fun with it. And I asked my son what he would like to see in it, even though like he's 4 and so he doesn't read books yet or anything. And he was like, I'd like you to write about a train. And I was like, okay. I can't remember. I wish I could remember who it was, and I usually have a really good memory for this kind of stuff. But I remember someone I think it was on Facebook. Someone was talking about the series, and they said, "I'd love to see one that's set at Christmas." And I was like, "Okay, I'll do that for the next one." I can't remember who it was because I'd like to give them a little kind of shout out in the book, but. If anyone sees that and it was you, please tell me, and I'll be like, okay. So anyone can tell me that now. I'll be like, yep, it was you.
The problem that I have with the writing for Christmas is that it's so tropey, and so you have to stay within certain boundaries with Christmas. Which I wrote for a Christmas anthology, and I found it like really difficult to kind of change the dynamic of what I was trying to write. But I ended up doing it, but it was like. It's crazy to think that you had to stay within certain parameters because everybody's so familiar with Christmas and tradition and everything.
Yeah. I kind of just threw all that out the window.
Nice.
I was just like, it's cold. There's snow. There's decorations. And there's presents at some point as well. Nick Holloran's idea of Christmas is watching Big Trouble in Little China on Christmas Day, which is. Is my idea of Christmas as well. So.
See, Christmas Eve is Die Hard for me, and then Christmas Vacation on Christmas Day.
Yeah.
But my story ended up being, the elves were a mafia, and they were holding Santa's wife hostage for better pay. So that's what they were. That was my story in the anthology. So
nice. I like it.
The other thing I know about you that we've had discussions about, and I know how you like to read and what you like to read, and it follows this kind of idea too, is that you like a faster pace. And one of the goals you set out for the second book was to make it a lot faster. And so I'm kind of curious now that you've written another book past that. Do you find that you have an approach to writing faster? Do you have a method to your madness in terms of how you get it to go faster? Writing it in that pace.
Yeah, I think so. I don't think any of my books are particularly slow paced, but I definitely wanted with Path of War, which is the second Empire. Yeah. With Path of War, which is the second in the Empire of Ruin series, the problem with that was it was going to be a lot bigger. So the first book is small for epic fantasy. It's 65,000 words, and then Path of War is 140,000. So it's like
quite a bit. That's more than double.
More than double. But it's so I needed to be like I need to keep the pace up on this one, but also not at the expense of going shallow with the characters as well. So it gets tricky. So what I kind of try and do is, especially with that one because it's multiple POV, is getting the jump between POVs right. So with the first book, what I did was, because it was a shorter book, I just spent one chapter with each character and there was 3 POV characters. So you'd have a chapter, move to the next one, move to the next one. So you wasn't ever too far away from them. And then in the last chapter, all of the storylines converge, right? Because it was like there was like a time bomb kind of story structure where it's like something was going to happen and they were all going to the same place, right? The second one is a little bit different because obviously being the second one, it gets a bit more complex and, you know, people go off doing different things. There's a divergence of storyline. So what I did was then, because it was longer, is that we spend a little bit longer with each character. So like maybe 2 or 3 chapters and do little kind of story arcs where there's a build, a crescendo, and then switch to POV, back down at the bottom again, build and the crescendo. So you kind of just keep on getting that I'll start here where the camera gets, it's kind of still getting like this all the time. Until the end where it kind of, the curve, it's still going upwards and upwards and upwards until the end where it's like a big kind of thing. So yeah, you kind of, and that's one of the things where like the spreadsheets kind of work out, is just to kind of be like looking where the action beats are and looking at where the character beats are as well, and making sure that they're all kind of, you're not going too long without something that moves the plot or the characters forward. So yeah, it's and I enjoy looking at all that kind of stuff as well because
sure. I'm curious. I'm curious with multiple POVs. Which character's head did you have the hardest time getting out of?
Getting out of in Empire of Ruin. In the second book, probably Nexes, who is one of the antagonists. And he's on a.
It's always the antagonist.
Yeah. And he's on a real downward spiral as well, it was hard to kind of get into that mindset. But once I was in it, it was hard to kind of get out of it because he is someone that's got a lot of self-loathing, but also it's an external self-loathing, so he turns it against lots of other people as well. And he is he's the head of the Hauptveltian army. Well, he's a normal person. And the Hauptveltian Empire, the Emperor, has kind of changed the rules of war, basically, and the Nexes is fearing that people like him are no longer needed. So he's kind of like, he is very dark, he's very troubled. So he's kind of thinking, what's his place in the world anymore? And the Emperor is pushing his buttons on purpose as well, because we spend a little bit of time with him as well, and he's kind of like, a rabid dog is good in a war situation, but he's getting reports back from his spies that like he may have gone a little bit too far with this. So it was an interesting one to kind of do, where it was one of those where it was kind of like I need to go and watch The Office after I finish writing.
Now, the big question would be then, is it the British Office or the US version?
The US Office is better.
Look at you.
It's better. So yeah, it was something nice for the soul after an Nexes chapter. But Nick Holleran is pretty hard to get out of as well, because there's a lot of bleed over between me and him. He's like, obviously because it's first person present as well, like, so you're kind of reacting to what's happening as it's happening, right? And we're the same age. I have hair here and he has hair here, so we're just going to swap it over. He's American, but he's Irish. He's Irish American, hence the name Nick Holleran, I suppose. And we have a lot of the same likes and dislikes. He is autistic as well, and obviously I am as well. So there's a lot of kind of similarities there. So it's funny because sometimes something will come up and I say, "Oh, what would I do in this?" So he's like an exaggerated version of me, a bit more confident, a bit more it throws caution to the wind a little bit more than I would as well. Yeah, it's kind of like wish fulfillment in a way, but he's also a massive schmuck as well. So
he's your Tyler Durden.
Right, yeah. He's good. He's good. It's funny because he gets a lot of people like saying it's kind of like Constantine mixed with like John Wick, mixed with like Ash Williams and
so it's Keanu Reeves.
yeah. Jack Burton in there as well, but also he is. Sometimes I get like he's like Dresden, but without the misogyny, and it's like, oh, yeah.
Wow. Jeez, that's pretty deep.
Yeah, but mainly it's just me basically. But so that one is kind of I find myself like talking to people sometimes, and I'll say something. I'll be like, "Oh God, that's something that Nick Holland would say." Like,
nice. He's rubbing off on you.
Right. Yeah.
So I mean, now that you've written 2 books that have bled into each other into a different series, I'm kind of curious how you like to begin the next book. Are you somebody who likes to jump time? Do you like to go backwards? Do you like to start like the moment the first from the last book ending? Where is your comfort zone in that respect?
So I've done most of those things. I'm still kind of figuring that out. So with the Helen Haven series, I've done literally one scene. The scene ends in in the Devil Walks in Blood now. There's 2 parts. There's Dead Man Walking and the Devil Walks in Blood. And
right.
So where Dead Man Walking ends, Devil Walks in Blood picks up in the same scene. But then
that must have been fun to write. That's an exercise for you.
Yeah, it was good. It was fun. It was a perfect place to kind of end it as well. Like the first part and Dead Man Walking, and it was one of those things. It was like, there's going to be more story, but the story for this one has been told, right? And it was nice to kind of just pick it right back up. But then the one I've just written, One Life Left, that picks up about 4 months later. Just again, kind of give it a little bit of and I've written a prequel as well, which was hard actually. And that was tough to kind of just to get into the younger headspace, I suppose. And did
it give you a little bit more sympathy for George Lucas?
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah. It's difficult. They are difficult beasts, right? And but then the Empire of Ruin ones, they're pretty much continuous. So between In Solitude Shadow and Path of War, it's pretty much, it's not the same scene that it picks up on, but it's like there's literally like a few hours have passed. With the third one, which I'm going to start writing this week, I'm actually still not sure how I'm going to approach it yet. I have to really figure it out because I do want to do a bit of a time jump at some point, but with the way that the book ended, I need to kind of pick up some plots and some threads right away. But I would also like to do a time jump because it's one of those things. It's like, do you want all of this to take place over the space of like 2 or 3 or 4 weeks, right? This big epic thing, right? You'd rather have it be months or something, and or maybe even just let the world settle for a little while and come back to it. But it's like, when is the point to do that? It's hard to decide, especially with especially when it's very event driven. So, it's because you don't want to take the suspense out of it, right? Because you don't want to just be like, well, everyone did nothing for 6 months. It's like, everyone just sat there twiddling the thumbs and just hanging out, right?
Is the prologue your friend in that respect? Then do you utilize the prologue for the fantasy aspects?
Yeah. So I've done prologues in both and epilogues in both the Empire of Ruin books, and I did prologue and epilogue in Devil Walks in Blood, but not in the new one or Dead Man Walking. So what I kind of like to do with prologues, especially, is to do something that is removed from the main characters that we're going to see, but kind of which gives more background as to what's going on in the world, more context. So yeah, I can't, because it's a great, because I think there is that acceptance from a reader where it's like it's a prologue, so it doesn't have to be in the same sequence of events, as long as it actually ties in some kind of way to the larger story. But I was thinking with this one, with the next Empire of Ruin book, was like, well, maybe I could just do the prologue as picking up the threads that I need to right away, and then I could go chapter 1 time jump or something like that. But then recently I saw someone reviewed In Solitude Shadow and was like, they were like, oh, you should definitely read the prologue, don't skip it. I was like, who skips prologues? And it's a thing. Some people just skip them, and I'm like, oh, really? Okay. So.
Well, for Frank Herbert and J.R.R. Tolkien, I usually do skip the prologues. I'll go back and read them because I know that they're just dribble of constant reminder of what happened before and things of that nature. So I mean, you get a sense of the author a little bit,
right?
And you decide that. But I have skipped it. I'll admit I've skipped it for the Dune series for sure. I probably didn't skip it for Lord of the Rings, even though I wanted to.
My brain just wouldn't allow it. I feel like it's written. This way it has to be read.
Yeah. I mean, I'll skim it, and if he just starts pontificating, I'll just go, okay, I'm moving forward.
Yeah.
But we have another hello, Bookish Brian.
Hello. How's it going?
It's nice to see you guys. And Nikki has a question for you. I'll bring that in, and she wants to know, what is your research process like? I mean, we did touch on it a little bit, and you did kind of answer the second part of the question, which is, do you do your research as you go or before you dive in? But yeah, give us all an idea of your research process, because it is fascinating. I do know that.
Yeah. So a lot. If it's something that I know that I'm going to actually have to deal with, I'll research it beforehand, and it can get a little bit out of hand with how long I spend researching things. Like, if I didn't have deadlines and stuff, I'd probably just keep world building and researching and actually never write anything. I'd just be like, I'm just having fun drawing maps that no one will ever see of like people's houses and stuff like this, the living quarters of the houses and that, So, but yes, but then if I come across something on like a whim, or if it's something that I'm kind of pantsing, I will kind of, what I usually do is I'll just put brackets and not the soft brackets, the hard, I don't know the names of the hard brackets, and I'll just put find name or find thing or research this, and then close brackets and just keep writing, because I did it the other way once for the first book that I wrote, which is coming out next year, but it's not been out yet, where I was writing a scene where the main character is getting ready to he's an alcoholic, he's got PTSD from World War II, and he's kind of let himself, like, his demons get the better of him. But he wants to get himself cleaned up to go for this kind of swanky 1940s Santa Monica club to get some information. He's a detective, and so he's getting himself cleaned up in the bathroom, and he's getting his best suit that he bought with his first wage packet that he hasn't worn for like 2 years, and it's a bit too tight for him and everything now. We've all been there, right? It's like so he's trying to get himself all kind of hyper-focused Kanye. So he's trying to get himself all ready for it. And then I was like, I wrote shower. He's going to get a shower. Then I thought, hang on a second, would he have had a shower in his apartment in 1949 Santa Monica? So I started researching it, and after 2 or 3, when I was writing, after about 2 or 3 hours of research, the answer was inconclusive. Because it was like, some of them started getting them in the mid-40s, and if it was this kind of design, it would have been maybe the late 30s, but most of them were like early 50s and all this kind of stuff. And I was like, I just couldn't find an answer that was satisfying for me. So I just was like, I'm just going to have him clean himself in the sink instead. Right? And that was it. That was for like 3 hours of research just to be like, he's cleaning himself in the sink like a baby.
I've been there, done those kind of things. That's great. It's just, that's a rite of passage right there.
Yeah, so I don't do it anymore. Yeah, so I don't do it anymore. I learned from that. It was just like, can you get so frustrated as well? Because you're kind of like, I just want to go back and I went down that fucking rabbit hole. Yeah, you want to actually be writing, and not just sitting there just looking at the most obscure second-hand information from people's grandparents that were living in Santa Monica in those days. And so I was like, I'm not going to do that anymore. So it's like, I just do the thing, type in the placeholder, and then I'm like, I'll come back. And I do the same thing as well. If there's a point from something that I'm not quite sure, I can't quite remember from my world building or from the previous books, I'll just put like character name or bartender's name or whatever, you know what I mean? And then when I finish, I just do a find and replace for the hard bracket, and I just go through and just go, I can just find this now, and do that. It just keeps the speed going. It keeps your head in the where you want it to be.
Good for you for remembering to replace those brackets, because I had a similar situation where I did a bracket with the research, and what happened was it got missed by everybody, my editors, myself, and because I forgot to replace and find, and luckily I was reading through. There was a question about something in the paragraphs a couple down from it, and I was so I always go backwards. I like to read a couple paragraphs before, and I saw it, and I go, oh shit, I was supposed to research that. Never did.
Let's do it now, then. Hey.
No. I was like, fuck it. Let's just keep going. It's gone. I'm just gonna live with whatever somebody wants to call me out on. I'm just gonna live with it.
The editor can research it, then they can start it out.
Yeah. Good luck with telling my editors that, Yes. See, and that's why I use highlights and comments easier to see. Yeah. That makes a lot of sense. Smart. Take notes. I'm curious. Has your ghostwriting helped improve your writing at all? Your process? Do you feel like, because you have written so many words now, you've got a pretty good sense of how you like to write and how you like to go about it? Or is it different? Is it different because it's a job more than it is for enjoyment, like you do with your own stuff?
Yeah, but both of those things at the same time. So it has helped for sure improve. I mean, in between In Solitude Shadow and Path of War, and I think In Solitude Shadow is pretty good, but I think Path of War is much better. I wrote probably 5 books between those ones for ghostwriting ones, and I think you can really see the difference in writing style and just knowing what kind of works and what kind of doesn't. But it is also a job as well when you're doing some of the ghostwriting stuff. So some of the things that you get through are things that you actually like, you know what, I actually would probably have not written this exact thing, but it's something that I enjoy writing and everything. And other times it's not. It's just literally, it's a job, and it's like, well, I just have to just do this because they're paying me to do it. So you just try to learn from it. And what's great about it is that I do mainly fantasy, but I'll do any subgenre of fantasy. So I do a bit of, I've done romantic fantasy, I've done few different types of urban fantasy. I've done like academy fantasy and like real classic fantasy, which was fun, and really grimdark as well. Which mine wouldn't quite be grimdark; it'd be just, probably just dark, maybe, in places, but not grimdarks. But I've done some of those for ghostwriting things, and it's just nice to kind of, you learn about tones quite a lot. There's something, so there's one that I'm working on for someone that's kind of like a modern day Conan. It's probably the best way to describe it. I really have a lot of fun writing it, but he's very, the client that I work for is very, very keen to kind of push violence, and it's very, very gratuitous and very kind of sexualized and all this kind of stuff. It's a modern day Conan, right? And it's kind of like, it's good because it's kind of like, well, I have to push myself to this because my normal inclination wouldn't go that far. That's not what I would want to do with my own books, right? So it's good to kind of figure that out through doing it for someone else than making a mistake in my own book and going kind of just like tonally way off the reservation. But yeah, it's good fun, but yeah, some of them are kind of just like, I'll do my 500 words today and that's it. Exactly 500 words, and then I'm done.
Speaking of writing fantasy, the Bookish Bryants wants to know: are you still planning to write urban fantasy after Nick Halloran is all said and done?
Yeah, I'd really like to. Nick Halloran might be 7 or 8, 9 books yet, so it's going to be around for a little while. And the good thing about that world is that I can dip back into it with different characters if I need to as well. There's enough kind of scope there, and there's scope for crossover as well with other series. But yeah, I have an idea for an urban fantasy series that I'd really like to write with someone else, actually. That is about two writers that are at a creative writing class, that their creations start coming to life around the city that they're in.
Wow.
And one of them is autistic, and the other one has got ADHD. So I'd like to really kind of do that. I think it'd be a lot of fun. I'd like to kind of do it with another author. But I have another idea as well, which is not quite urban fantasy, but it's not epic either. It'd be,
well, don't give away all your ideas here. Keep some.
But yeah, I won't tell you the specifics. But like, what I'll be aiming for is Agatha Christie meets Discworld with a little bit of Joe Abercrombie thrown in.
Shut up! How awesome!
So that's. But I'm going to be doing that one after I finish with the Empire of Ruin books, and then Nick will still be going on for a little longer.
And Abercrombie is kind of known for kind of being a little bit of dark in some aspects. So you're willing to go that way for your own writing a little bit?
Yeah. So the thing that I'd like to take from him for that one is he's really funny. Like, he is, and what he's able to do is he might do something that is really, really dark and really kind of horrible and despicable, but then he'll just do like a little one line where you're funny, like, I shouldn't be laughing at this right now, but it's really funny, right? But also it's the low magic aspect of it, which I would like to kind of do with this kind of Agatha Christie meets Discworld one. I'd like to kind of get that nice. Low magic side of it into and the kind of the Britishness.
Yeah.
Joe Abercrombie has that very kind of British,
the properness, right? Being more proper.
Yeah, just the properness and kind of like the kind of to play around with the class system a little bit, with like English class system.
One of Christie's best subversions is to do those kind of things, play with the class system a bit and kind of framework. You think that the killer is this, but it's really
Exactly. It's all of them.
Yeah.
Everyone. And that's I think that's the thing that I'm really looking forward to when I start working on this. I'm going to treat it as a standalone.
Spoiler alert for everybody who's going to read that.
Yeah. I'm going to treat it as a standalone with potential of a series. I know like what the thing would be. But what I'm really looking forward to doing on that one is spending a few weeks just rereading Agatha Christie novels.
Yeah, nice.
Yeah, and Discworld.
It brings up an interesting idea for me. I'm curious about character death for you. Are you someone, as because you have world building involved and you have future books in mind and things like that? Mm-hmm. Are you someone who agonizes over character deaths? Are you someone that looks to the nuances of it, or are you just like, I can't get this person dead fast enough?
Can't get them dead fast enough. I'm sure a few people would like especially Empire of Who would like a few of the characters killed off.
So you like to torture your audience a little bit, keep them alive.
Yeah. So, it's what serves the story best, and the character challenge. What's the most challenging thing that a character can go through? So you have the main characters, and I did kill off a main character, probably one of the main characters in Solitude Shadow. I killed them off in the first book, but that was because that served the story, and it was also the biggest challenge one of the other characters could face. So, which came in two parts, because they had their first main challenge was to have this person back in their lives again, because they were estranged from them. And then once they were back in their lives, the biggest challenge would be what would happen if you lost this person, right? So it made sense for the larger story. And so, yeah, I mean, you get close to your characters, you like all of them, even like, the bad guys and everything like that. You enjoy writing them, and you kind of try to empathize with them as much as you can, and make them as compelling as you can. But when the time comes for them to die, then it's okay, right? And some of them, you have to treat it. Again, what is best for the story and what is going to serve the characters best. Some of them get to say goodbye to them, some of them don't.
Yeah,
and that's life.
Was that the one that stuck with you the hardest though? Was that the hardest one, killing the main character that you killed?
No, the hardest one was killing one of the supporting characters in Path of War, because he was based on my granddad, who I lost at a very early age. But I was very, very close to him. So, and they say based on him, the character goes through quite a tough time, but the relationship between him and another character was very kind of grandfatherly. So that was the toughest, because that was always the plan for that character. And again, it kind of serves one of the main characters' arcs. But that was the toughest one, and that was one of those ones. It's one of the ones that I actually kind of went back and forth on a couple of times. Not killing the character off, but the actual scene of, is it going to be a quick one, or did he get to say goodbye? And I think I settled on the saying goodbye one for that one, and I think it was the right choice in the end for the story. But it was also a little bit of wish fulfillment as well, I think, for myself, to kind of work through a few issues, I suppose. So that was a tough one, but again, it was the right decision to do. Like, in my heart, I would have kept this character alive throughout the whole series and let them have a happy ending, but it wouldn't have been satisfying.
I think my next question is going to be interesting, just because I know how you relate, and I don't you've already mentioned that you do have, you're a little bit on the spectrum. You have some autism in there, and I'm kind of curious what emotion do you tap into often in writing that you're surprised by that you tapped into it?
Showing restraint, I think, is the main one.
Interesting.
Because I am autistic, as you said, and I am quite. I have quite a lot of empathy for people in general, which I'm lucky with, and because some autistic people don't, and some autistic people do have it but struggle with being able to express it. And emotions in general are something that autistic people can have trouble with in terms of big emotions. Like we feel emotions very, very strongly, especially like extreme ones, right? So
and they stay with you. They're kind of lingering, right?
Yeah, they and you remember very, very specifically. Certain things and certain emotions and how they relate to things. So that is the thing that when writing, it's kind of, and I think that's where the kind of empathy comes into it, which is great because it's to show a little bit of restraint where it's not too emotional. Because emotion is good in stories, and you want to elect emotion, but you also want people to, if they're in a heightened situation, you don't want them to be having like my experience with some emotions when I'm in heightened. Unless the character is autistic, right? And where that is fine. So it's that kind of thing of just getting that balance of moving everything along as it should. Which is like, from my experience, it's things don't always move along in the way that they should. So it's like, it's one of those things like, you kind of, a lot of things you pull on your own experiences from, and you pull on, your own kind of thoughts and feelings. But so in this way, it's kind of a reverse kind of thing. It's like, okay, so this character wouldn't do that in this situation. The plans have suddenly changed, and it's like it takes half an hour for my head to be like, okay, well, I was going to do this today, but now I have to do this thing again, and this kind of thing. So yeah, that restraint would be the one. He does. This thing like Nick Halloran is
a smart ass.
He is smart, yeah, but he is autistic. So he has some of those things, and it's kind of, I tried really, really kind of hard to make it kind of not to kind of signpost it and be like, this is an autistic character, right? Because I kind of hate that.
Because there's so much, there's so many variables with autism. It's not always, and some of it's mild, some of it's deeper, and there's certain things that you feel that other autistic folks don't feel, and there's functioning and non-functioning. There's so much.
Exactly, and there's like verbal, non-verbal, overly verbal, and and it's but like I was at a convention the weekend just gone, and I was on a panel about mental health representation in fantasy and sci-fi, and not everyone is like Sheldon Cooper, and not everyone is Rain Man. There's different types of autism. And so I've written Nick in a way that I hope, anyway, especially in this next book, where people who are neurodivergent would recognize it and see like a positive representation of it. And it's not something that's signposted when it's like, for people that wouldn't recognize it, would be able to be like, oh yeah, there's something different about this person. You know what I mean? Because then I think it's like, it doesn't do anyone any favors, I think, in this day and age, because it's just but yeah, so yeah, the restraint side is that is one, because like something, yeah.
Do you? I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, I was going to say, because like, obviously in the fantasy and stories, characters die, and it takes me about 20 years to get over someone's death, so you couldn't really have that in a book, right?
Yeah. That'd be tough to move on to the next book for sure.
Exactly.
That brings up the question I was going to ask, though, because I'm kind of curious. How do you feel? Do you have some sort of emotion when you finish a book? Is there an emotion that you elicit that you kind of? I know I elicit the pure exhale of exhaustion, but because I'm a terrible. I don't follow any schedule or anything like that. But I'm just curious if you have an elicited emotion when you're done.
I don't, and it's frustrating. Right, because it is, and I know it's something that I should give myself more credit for when I finish a book, because you see so many people that are kind of like, I'd love to be able to write a book, but I've written like half of one and I've stopped, and it's so many people that are like that. And writing one book is an achievement.
Yeah.
But what I do is I usually finish the book, send it off to my beta readers, and then just start writing another book.
Nice.
And I don't even give myself the time to just be like, well done, right? Let's just take the night off. Let's, have a drink or get a takeaway or congratulate yourself on achieving something. And it's I kind of think it is definitely something that is with my thought process, because it's kind of like, well, let's see what I've learned from this one, and let's see what I can do with the next one. And also as well, I just really I really enjoy writing the books. So it's like, I just like, I'm all right, okay, let's go. And I have so many ideas for things, and because of the way that I kind of work on my series, that I do alternate books in each one. So I'm in the background of my head, I'm thinking, right, okay, this is what I'm going to do with it. So as soon as I've finished this one, I'm like, on to the next one, because this has been baking for a little while. But yeah, I need to kind of do that kind of like, okay, it's good job, well done, Dave, you've done it.
Well, you can do that right now, because this was a well done. Good job. Thank you so much for being here, David. This was an awesome conversation. We're up against it, so we're gonna say good night. But I really I love getting deeper with what you do and how you do it, because you're such a fascinating guy in terms of process and everything. And so it's pretty awesome, man. So thank you for taking the time and being a part of the show.
No problem at all. Thanks for having me on. Really enjoyed it.
Tell everybody where they can find you real quickly.
So the best place is Linktree. So Linktree, David Greenwriter, and that'll get you everywhere that I have on the internet, every single place.
Good. I have the right link. I have the right link up then.
Yeah, that's the right one. It's great. It's really easy to remember. Just David Greenwriter. So it's. I used to have like loads of different ones. I was like, why do I have different ones? So I just call everything David Greenwriter. It's just easier.
That's awesome. Well, sir, thank you so much. And I know it's super, super early there, so I really, really appreciate you taking the time to do this.
No problem at all. Anytime.
All right. Well, it's always time to go indie now, everybody. We'll be back Sunday afternoon for some of you. We have This Week in Indies, where there was a lot going on this week, and we're going to talk a lot about it. Amazon is doing some stuff, and we're going to talk about that. And then we have on Monday, we have Jim Nettles joining us for 21 Grams, which will be fun. And then David will be back on GoIndieNow on Tuesday night with a brand new show. He's joining Ron LR, who's got a brand new show called Mean Reviews. And it's not as you sound. Wait till you see it. It's going to be interesting. I think you'll will enjoy it. And David is his first co-host, so that'll be a lot of fun. I'm sure you'll have a lot of fun there. And Madeline Dale, geez, you would think I'm the one that is 4 a.m. for. But Madeline Dale will be around on Wednesday night with her new show, Character Driven, where she has J.E. Taylor. So we've got a lot going on, everybody. So come and check us out and be a part of what we're doing. Like, subscribe, and remember that it's always time to go indie now. We'll see you later.